Hello, everyone. Welcome to an episode of TCG Talk. Hope you're having a great day. And in today's video, we're going to be going over official Fi deck tech. Kind of different from the ones that I've done before. The last couple iterations I've been doing are showing you kind of like different ways to build Fi and kind of like where my head's at. I would say that this one is the first official kind of like Road to Nationals deck tech. Like if I were to go to an event, this would be the Fi list I'd be using. So we'll get right into it. Uh, this list or a variation of this list had a couple of people already use it. We've had two people get top 8 at their respective events with it, so it's doing pretty well. There's been slight changes with the list that they use, so overall, doing well so far. So hopefully, I can take it to an event and do well with it. But the base core of the reason for this list, the base thought or idea is to use Kadachis instead of Emberblade in the main board. Um, what I've been noticing with Fi, and I've kind of talked about this in previous deck techs, is he doesn't have a lot of on hit effects. His main way of making an opponent interact with him is through mass triggers and like threatening mass triggers and threatening a couple on hit effects, maybe like engulfing flame wave if you were to use it, or maybe like breaking point, or something like that, right? But like most of his attacks are just sheer damage, similar to how Chain was. Um, which overall isn't bad. It's fine. But the thing with Ninja is you want to force your opponent to interact with you, because the issue that you might run into is you're playing a Briar, you're playing maybe even Katsu, or you're playing somebody that really can race you a little bit, but has better on hit effects than you do, right? Like Briar has Snatch, and she has a couple of big effects, like Force of Nature and stuff like that. Whereas with you and Fi, it's pretty much just Mask. So the thought of this was, well, since he doesn't have a lot of on a hit effects, I have two options. Or three options. The one easy button is I can play Katsu, which I don't want to do right now. The second option really is to kind of run with a really full hybrid build with a lot of on hit effect type cards, but then again, it doesn't play into what Fi wants to do, which is to get to those Phoenix Flames and really have long, wide chains. Then I fell on the third option is if I could find a way to make Kadachis work to where I can output the same damage and the same amount of pressure on the opponent, but I also can go a little bit wider, maybe with 6, 7 links, as opposed to like 4 or 5 links most turns, and really put a lot of pressure on my opponent with like 2 mass triggers a turn. And what I've noticed with this build is most hands, especially 4 and 5 card hands, I'm doing 6 links pretty easily. And it's all really centered around using Bram with Cinderclaw to be able to give my Kadachis or make my Kadachis a Draconic Link, because Bram with Cinderclaw can make your next attack this combat chain Draconic, right? It doesn't matter if it's an attack action or not. So you play Bram with Cinderclaw, then play a Kadachi, and a Kadachi counts for a second link, which then allows you to be able to go get your Phoenix Flames for free once you get to link 3, right? So that's the basis of the list. So it allows for more flexibility with play lines, because one thing I've noticed with Syrian Everblade is it's an amazing card, really good. But the problem with it is, depending on the hand you have, it kind of makes you have to, it forces you to have to play a certain line or pick between two lines because it costs 2 resources. Like if you have 2 1-cost cards in hand without Tunic, then you're now forced to make a decision, right? Do I play Searing and not be able to play one of these 1-cost cards? Or do I, play both 1-cost cards and Searing, and then, or use my Phoenix Flame that I'm going to go get the pitch for Searing, which you really don't want to do sometimes, whatever have you, right? Whereas with Kadachis, if you have Brand with Cinderclaw in hand, you don't have to pick, right? Like you could have 2 1-cost cards and Brand with Cinderclaw and have, blue, and you're able to use one of the Kadachis. It counts as a link still. Yes, is it technically 2 less damage? Sure. But for me, in my opinion, having 6 to 7 links is more important than having 3 extra damage a turn, 2 extra damage a turn, because you can force regardless of what type of fire build you have, you're going to force a lot of damage, right? And I'd say with this build on a 4 or 5 card hand, I'm averaging like 14ish damage a hand. And when I'm doing that over 6 links, 7 links, it just gets really oppressive for the opponent. So anyway, we'll get right into it. Again, running Kadachis in the main board with Tunic, Mask, Snaps, and Stubbies. We're running 9 Brand with Cinderclaws. The blues obviously are more for pitch, but if we have like 2 blues in hand with a Brand, which I've had happen before, like you can play the Brand, then pitch the other blue, play a Kadachi. It counts as a Draconic Link and allows you to continue your hand. We are running standard like 3 Flame Call Awakenings, Blaze Headlong, Lava Burst. These are kind of like standard 5 cards at this point. Mountain Anger I've loved more and more because it allows me to play this, Chain Link 1, which most time people aren't going to block Chain Link 1 fully out because they know that 5 more links are coming and they're just going to waste blocks early, so they're not going to do that. So most time if you play Mountaineer or Chain Link 1, you then can play something like a Ruin Renegade for 4 or Brand with Cinderclaw for 4 or even a Blaze Headlong for 5. It's really good for that, so it just helps push damage and try to make up for a little bit of not having Emberblade in the main board. Ruin Renegade, obviously. Phoenix Flame, Soaring Strike. Soaring Strike's really good for giving cards. If you play it on Chain Link 2, you can give Take the Tempo Go Again. You play it on Chain Link 1, you can give cards like Salt the Wound Go Again, which is amazing. If it's on the 6th link, like it's really going to force their hand if they try to wait till that final attack. Really good for that. And yeah, so we're running 3 Art of Wars, Rise and Resentment. Pretty standard list outside of the brands and the Kadachis. I guess the only kind of different thing is running 3 Salt the Wounds because they're just amazing final attacks, to be honest. And then in the main board, we're running 17 blues. I mostly do this, you could go down to 15 and there's definitely an argument for it. But 17 I find really good because it always allows me to pitch my Kadachis and even have a little bit, if I only have 2 Draconic attacks, good Draconic attacks in my hand with a blue, and maybe like 2 Draconic attacks, Assault the Wound and a blue. So like, let's say Soul Beat Strike, Assault the Wound, and then like a Ronin and a Soaring Strike. What this allows me to do is use that last resource of that blue to go get that Phoenix Flame, which again, I always want to have a blue in hand. So, and then Tome of Firebrand, obviously. This may look a little weird in a Kadachi build, but because I'm running those 9 Brand with Cinderclaws, I most of the time can get this off. But honestly, out of all the slots in my main board, this one's probably the most up for debate. I could put 2 Red Rise from the Ashes into this to be really good, or just put 2 good attacks in there. It all depends on kind of, where we're going with it, but overall I haven't had any issues, but it's something to kind of look at as time goes on. So yeah, this is the main board. This is normally what I'm running. Then we have the sideboard. We have 3 breaking points, 3 erase faces, a flame scale furnace, Mask of Pouncing Links, Shuko, Tide Flippers, 2 Thaws, and Ember Blade. So I'm gonna kind of go over here or go to the deck. Where is it? Oh gosh, it's over here. So we'll kind of talk about like what I'm thinking about doing with the sideboard guide. So my main thought point, kind of the biggest like decision point I have with my sideboard is, do I run Command and Conquer or do I run Breaking Point? And I'm still kind of going back and forth. Command and Conquer is obviously better from a effect perspective because it doesn't allow for defense reactions to be played on it, which is really useful. However, Breaking Point is a little bit better because it's easier to get off and I can snap it, which I really enjoy. So if I side this in against people who value their arsenal, obviously, and if I'm going to be, doing that, being able to play like, if you have like a Lava Burst and a Breaking Point, or you draw into a Breaking Point, then you can play Lava Burst, snap, play Breaking Point. It's really useful for that, and it allows you to just have a little bit different lines, and it still threatens their arsenal just the same. And off Art of War turn, this is really good as well. It just helps with that. So we'll see what happens in the future, but right now I think Breaking Point's just a little bit easier to get off with Fi. You can snap it. At worst, it's a 1 for 5, and in the worst of the situations, right? Like if you draw into like a Lava Burst, a Breaking Point, Assault the Wound, and like a good Draconic attack, you can Kadachi, Brand, Breaking Point, snap it, go get a Phoenix Flame or something. It's just kind of ways to get out of weird hands. Whereas with Command and Conquer, you're kind of just stuck. But yeah, so this comes in against like Lexi, against Briar, against Katsu, against Fi, anybody that values their arsenal, against Bolton, it's really good. Erase Face literally comes in almost against everybody. Erase Face is the new Command and Conquer for me when it comes to like use case and applicability. It's what Command and Conquer used to be, in my opinion. It comes in against Dromai. It comes in against Prism because it literally makes her heralds not have go again. It comes in against Icelander because if it hits, she can't fuse the next turn. It comes in against Briar because she can't pitch to keep Channel Mount Heroic around or put it in play and keep it around, nor can she fuse her Bramble Sparks and her Force of Natures and stuff like that. Viserai, it literally turns off Viserai. Like, you get the picture, right? Like, it literally comes in against almost anything. Bravo, it makes it to where he can't have Dominate, which is really nice. Lexi can't fuse, right? And then Katsu and Fi. Katsu can't Katsu, and then Fi doesn't have Draconic Links, right? So again, it's just such a good card. For Flamescale Furnace and Shuko, these are basically coming in when I need to have value blocks. So it's going to come in against the mirror. They're going to come in against Prism. They're going to come in against Katsu, coming against Briar. Somewhere where I just need to maybe get a little bit of value block, right? Like if I can block for 4 without using any cards from hand one turn on like a big swing turn, then they're really good for that. They're also really good in kind of those fatigue matchups against Oldheim and Bravo. So really good for that as well to help block out some of that dominate. Just really good. You can see it in my sideboard guide. And then Siri Nimberblade, I am putting this in against the Guardians. I'm putting it against Oldheim because Oldheim can block out your Kadachis so easily, and so can Bravo. So having Emberblade in there to force a whole card from hand in order to get them to block out the link is really useful. If I know it's a really, really, really aggressive Bravo, like if you know the Bravo player, then maybe you keep Kadachis in. But overall, this is coming in against Guardian. Thaws are coming in against Icelander, obviously. If you want them to come in against Lexi, you can, but I don't think you really need it. Mask of Pouncing Lynx, this is coming in against Oldheim because, and potentially Bravo, but right now just Oldheim because, you're never going to get Mask off anyway, but being able to threaten like going to get Assault the Wound at the very end of a long chain to come in for like 9 or 8 or something like that, or to go get, I don't know, Assault the Wound is the main one that I'm trying to go get. You could get a Lava Burst as well to try to hit them for 5. Really useful for that. Yeah, that's what I'm looking to do. Like off a big Spreading Flames turn, if I've hit for like 6-7 links and then they're gonna let that last one hit, well, then I destroy it, search my deck for Assault the Wind, come in with Assault the Wind for 9 or something like that just to push it over the top. And then Tide Flippers with this, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not respecting Arcane as much. I'm putting this in for Viscerai because in my opinion, you just need to run AB1 against Viscerai. Otherwise, he opens up more play lines because he can basically play like meet and greets for free and they'll get go again. Just makes his life easier. So because of that, I want to have Tide Flippers for him. I run it against Briar just in case I need to block out some point of Arcane for some reason because you rarely need snaps anyway. It's just good value. And also can give something like Assault the Wind go again or a Lava Burst go again. So it's still useful in that regard. And then I'll put it against Icelander. Rarely am I going to block out anything from Icelander. I'm just going to race her down, but it can be useful depending on how your time's going. So, and then Kano is just a straight race, but I haven't seen very much Kano representation with all the Dromai running around. It's going to be really hard for Kano to do much, at least in my opinion. Yeah, that's the basis of it. I have a sideboard guide in here if you want to go check it out. Please go look at it. But yeah, the list has been really well for me. It's slightly less in power as it pertains to overall damage. However, the flexibility you get with this deck and the ability to go super wide with this deck is so much better. And in my opinion, Fi isn't about damage. He's about going wide. Like he doesn't have like these big tall attacks like Chain did. And speaking of Chain, like yes, I'm not running Belittle in this for 2 reasons or 3 reasons really. The personal reason that's not like competitive based is I really just don't like it. It's not very fun. Like it's kind of a boring build. I'm not gonna lie. But that's just a personal opinion. That's nothing like competitive based. The second reason is I think it's gonna be banned next month. And so because my RTN is draft for this month, I'm not really caring about using it because by the time I would use it in a big event, I think it's gonna be banned anyway. That's another personal opinion. And the second reason is I don't think you need Belittle. Like in Fi, you never hardly ever want to go get a red minnow. Most of the Belittle builds you see are running 2 blue minnows. And with 17 blues and Kadachis, I don't ever need a blue. Like I can count on one hand in 50 games with Fi running Kadachis where I would like, man, I wish I had a blue right now. Like it just hasn't happened. I've almost never been resources short. I think people run slightly unoptimal builds in order to make Belittle work, or they try to run less consistent builds and then use Belittle as like a band-aid to be able to run those less consistent builds. So yeah, that's just my opinion on the card. But if you want to run it, it's definitely good. 4 out of the 5 Fis in week 1 that got top 8 had it. So definitely is useful, right? But just not my cup of tea. Yeah, this is the basis of the build. Kind of the key points to look at in the future. Breaking Point or Command and Conquer is a big one. And then this Toma Firebrand slot, if I find this to not be useful, like in a long line of testing, then maybe I'll sub this out for something like a good attack. But overall, it's worked really well for me so far still. The main reason I use Tome of Firebrand is most time when I draw, I can attack one more time and then arsenal the other card. Like it basically gives you an attack and an arsenal, which is really nice. So yeah, overall that's the basis of it. Hopefully it makes sense to you. Like I said, if I were going to a Road Nationals, like a constructed one, because mine's draft, if I were to go to Road Nationals, then this would be the list I would use. And I really feel confident about it. So let me know what you think of it. It's definitely different, but it has had success already. We've had 2 people do really well at their RTNs with it. So let me know what your thoughts are on the deck. And yeah, any suggestions y'all have, what y'all have been seeing in Road Nationals, just give your insight. If you want to join the Discord down below, we do have over almost 170 members at this point. Definitely join, whether you're a new or seasoned player, ninja or not ninja, it doesn't matter. Join and have some fun. And yeah, we'll see y'all next time on TCG Talk. Thank y'all so much.